Back in the day, this money was like finding cash in your couch cushions, but the workers here seemed totally uninterested because that valve was right under a smoking nuke. They all knew its significance, but when Energy Minister Shabina said it could save billions, three heroes stepped forward instantly. I'm here to save the day. Indeed I am. Don't move, don't move. Then they donned their heavy protective gear, resembling future superheroes about to embark on a mission, shouldering everyone's hopes as they entered the depths of the basement tank. The ground was already underwater, and the farther they went, the deeper it got, with the radiation detector sounding more and more like a fire alarm, and even the flashlights were clocking out from the strong. They had to rely on their memories in the dark, time ticking away, and out there, the anxious crowd started to worry, even thinking those three might have gone to the great beyond already. Just then, a frantic knock echoed, and those three heroes miraculously completed the task. Everyone present burst into applause, and the plan to drain the tank went into overdrive. The reactor flames were extinguished, but Professor Legasov immediately dampened spirits, reminding them it was just a temporary solution. As time marched on, the molten rock from the overheated reactor would eat through the concrete in 2 months, and then nuclear fuel would seep into the groundwater. This would affect millions of people's drinking water, so they needed to call in liquid nitrogen from across the nation and dig a huge space for a heat exchanger to cool down the reactor. They rushed to report to the leader, hoping to snag some extra support. The next morning, the coal minister got the coal and raced to the nearby mines, continuing to search for the best tunnelers just at that moment. The firefighters who rushed to the scene after the accident ultimately couldn't withstand the radiation, one by one succumbing, and their bodies were wrapped up in thick plastic and placed into, then stuffed into special coffins, all sealed up with welding torches. Once the coffins were lowered into deep graves, they had to be buried with concrete. These unnamed heroes, no matter where they came from, will forever remain on this land. What they left behind for their families pan that's iron. Just their changed clothes and endless longing. As coal workers, dirty and dusty, they were required to unconditionally join this top-secret mission. But upon witnessing the coal minister parading around with an air of arrogant pride, surrounded by his guards brandishing submachine guns, they couldn't help but feel an increasingly intense rebellion brewing deep within them. Not only were they reluctant to go, but the union leader even bluntly said that the coal minister realized these workers weren't pushovers, so he had no choice but to spill the beans. The higher-ups sent him to find the best diggers to go to Chernobyl, where the concrete beneath the reactor was about to melt under intense heat. Their mission was to prevent this disaster, but he had no clue what exactly needed to be done. But he knew it all hinged on tens of millions of people's drinking water. After a moment of silence, the union leader looked at his buddy beside him, then stepped up first, patting the minister's pristine suit as best as he could. After that, the workers lined up to leave their marks on the minister's clothing. They began praising, "Now take a look at these noble workers." This group of down-to-earth labourers just gave the noble minister a lesson. Though their origins were humble, they stood tall, fighting for their dignity. They'd sacrifice for more. Soon, dozens of minibuses entered the plant. Over 400 miners, stunned by the sudden glow, started work without hesitation. After all, the sooner they finished, the sooner they could leave this crazy place. But as the tunnels went deeper, the challenges became tougher. The hardest part was the nearly 50-degree heat, and when the foreman suggested installing fans, the general rejected it outright. Remember this general? He rushed solo into the plant for radiation data, hence his rejection stemmed from concern. The foreman boldly led his crew in totally nude. When Shabina and Legasov came to check on progress, they were greeted by such a sight. Both were shocked yet genuinely impressed by the dedication of the workers, who managed to finish the task ahead of schedule under such grueling conditions. They had expertly tackled the concrete issues associated with the massive piles of new concrete. In reality, nearly half of these miners didn't make it past 40, but they successfully saved nearly 10 million lives. Next up, they had to seal the entire nuclear power station to prevent any more radioactive material from being released. This shell later became known as the sarcophagus, and building it was no walk in the park. They brought in trains to dismantle the carriages, using armoured vehicles to tow them into position. Then, they poured concrete through suspended pipes, tossing in the trains and steel beams for good measure. In the end, they built a 6 by 7 metre barrier. Next, close to 80,000 people and 9,000 machines came on site, rotating shifts like a well-oiled machine. They used 440,003 of concrete, 600,003 of gravel, and 7,700 tons of metal. With non-stop work day and night, the sarcophagus was basically complete in 3 months. During this time, Legasov sought an audience with the KGB chairman, while Anna, mistaken for a spy, during earlier undercover investigations, found out the truth about the reactor explosion. Anna wanted to make the findings public, but Legasov urged her to hold back. Being Belarusian, anything she said would be labelled as inciting a national war. It wasn't until 2 years later, during a nuclear energy speech, that Legasov pointed at 3 top officials as the main culprits behind the explosion, right in front of everyone. These were the station chief, the chief engineer, and the design director, responsible for the overall operations. Turns out the Chernobyl reactor wasn't even fully completed back then. They had deliberately and purposely faked the completion documents. They did this solely to score brownie points with their superiors in order to gain more recognition. The equipment had been continuously screaming alarms throughout the night, but Chief Engineer Dyer thought it was all normal and ordered everyone to keep going, until the reactor's power began to skyrocket uncontrollably. Tons of steel plates began to warp upwards, and everyone finally realized they were in deep trouble. When the engine